Hello and welcome everybody. This is your lesson on elements of culture. In this lesson, you're going to learn about the specific aspects and factors that comprise a demographic specific culture. We're going to learn more about what the elements of culture are and how do they work together or separate to create a complete cultural picture of a particular group of people. When you think of culture, you might think of certain aspects and characteristics of yourself that define who you are. When we look at world cultures, of course, we're going to think about all the different eclectic factors that might comprise a particular group of people. The way that they act, the way that they behave, what they believe, and several other aspects that you might overlook. Let's go ahead and get started. And as we do so, please go ahead and fill in your notes accordingly. So, culture can be looked at from a variety of different perspectives. To make the world an interesting place, of course, there's different types of cultures all around the world. Culture comes from different factors and dynamics that we're going to look into right now. But before we do, let's define more articulately what is culture. Culture is all the elements that define a person's society or civilization. When you think about what it means when we say things like American culture, there might be certain things that come to mind. Certain holidays, certain traits, certain characteristics, certain practices, and certain ideologies that we as Americans tend to believe in and champion. When we look at world cultures, you could take that similar lens and scope, but think about it from a more eclectic standpoint. What are the different elements of culture that define a particular group of people? Well, within a culture, there are about 7 major main elements. We're going to focus on those 7 elements today, and also focus on them throughout the entire rest of the year as we delve deeper into world cultures. Those traits are government, religion, arts and literature, customs and traditions, the economy, social organizations, and language. All of these factors together combine to form our collective understanding of a particular group of people from different places around the world. Let's take a step back for a moment and think, what would people from other countries think of us? When we flip the script and we think objectively about our own culture, these 7 different breakdowns of aspects allow us the chance to look at ourselves more critically, just as we do so to the outside world. Let's look at government first. Government can be best defined as the person or organization within a society that governs a culture. When we think of many different countries around the world, different types of governments come to mind. Certainly, when we think of North Korea, we think of a totalitarian regime where the people live at the mercy of a government. The function of government when it comes to culture is very simple. It's to make and enforce the laws within a culture. Sometimes these laws, of course, in big ways define the way that people live their lives and the way that they have a relationship with their government. On a grander scheme, governments often have interactions with other governments from around the world, thus infiltrating a cultural web that is sometimes complicated to navigate. Religion. Religion is best defined as a set of practices and beliefs that are important to a culture. If you look at some of these religious symbols over here on the left, you'll probably associate several different thoughts and words that combine to form your collective understanding of different religions or different types of beliefs. There are 2 main functions of religion when it comes to culture: to create a set of morals and values to live by, and also to answer basic questions about the unknown. For example, when people think about American culture, we often associate our culture with Christianity. Many people might be quick to point that our nation was founded off of Christian principles, which in many ways is true. However, when you think of Christianity as a faith and our government as a whole, there are different types of similarities that combine to form our understanding about how religion and government work hand in hand. And together, those types of ideological beliefs affect the way that we believe our government should run, and we believe that religion should actually take a part in our life. Other countries around the world might have very similar or different views when it comes to religion and government and the way that it helps to dictate a person's life. Arts and literature. There are many categories of art. Look to the right, and you'll see an eclectic type of art from around the world. Paintings, sculptures, theater and music, architecture, and more. The main function of art is more than just to create beautifully aesthetic pieces that allure the eye. but is to express the inner self to the outside world. For example, when we often think about Rome and Greece, we often think of the iconic statues and buildings that once were, and some that still are today. However, please keep in mind those statues weren't just built just because, they were often built to pay homage to the essence of culture for the time, and still surpass the test of time today. Customs and traditions. Customs and traditions are best defined as patterns of behavior handed down from generation to generation in a culture. When we think about customs and traditions, we can probably best think about the ways that people celebrate certain events in their lifestyles. When you think about some of these pictures over here in American culture, we often think of the 4th of July or Christmas as being very American-esque holidays. We also have weddings, and of course anniversaries that we celebrate too. What other types of customs and traditions do we embellish on though? Think about that. The main function of customs and traditions is to promote a common history or a common culture of a group of people. For example, Christmas has a very rich history and Germanic traditions, and so for many people who might be of European descent, you might have a different take on Christmas than maybe somebody, of course, who's from a different culture, who Christmas in its historical root is not native to. Let's look at the economy. The economy is best described as the production and consumption of goods by a culture or society. When you think about these images here, we often think about the United States making certain things so that people can have money and have a lifestyle that they would like to lead. However, the economy in a cultural sense functions on different levels. This is the building and creating of jobs and wealth for a culture. Most successful countries have stable and strong economies, which means that they have the ability to produce what they need and more to provide for trading opportunities and networks and jobs for people within a culture or a country. Next, let's look at social organizations. Over here on the left, you'll see a group of different types of people within an eclectic culture. The way that we can best define social organizations are the different layers that combine to form a culture based off of socioeconomic factors, like social class, family groups, and more. Let's look at the function of social organizations. Social organizations allows cultures to organize and recognize themselves from around the world. If you think about what it means to be, say, African American in America, that might mean something different than being African native to the continent of Africa. On the same token, if you think about what it means to be poor in America, that might be something totally different than being poor in Bangladesh in Asia. Language. Many of you might actually know more than one language. It's very possible that you might actually know these languages from different experiences or people or customs and culture in your own lifestyles. Language is best defined as the verbal and nonverbal ways that a culture communicates. A successful culture has a universally agreed upon method of language, whether it be written and or spoken, for feasible and easy communication. Once again, speaking is very powerful because words allow us the chance to enunciate our thoughts. In their most primal sense, speaking allows us the chance to express what we're trying to say in a dynamic way. Writing allows us the chance to express what we mean on paper or some other type of product to leave a mark of what we are trying to say or the story that we're trying to tell as well. Gestures, whether it be verbal or nonverbal, also allows the chance to integrate with one another. The function of language is to make it easier to express ideas and thoughts within a culture. When you think about foreign languages, and some of you might be studying foreign languages now, the essence of language can be understood and appreciated from a cultural sense in that you can take a step back from your own native language and look at another language and study its grammar, study its syntax, and study the way that it actually functions and sounds, and look at it from different layers and perspectives. When you think about the essence of culture, before we close out, please keep this in mind. The beauty of culture is that it defines other people from around the world quite differently. But the fact of the matter is that there are beautiful elements of every single culture that must be understood and looked at objectively. The more that we have the ability to remove our essence of our own culture and look at other cultures, We are then able to engage with the world around us in a more genuine, altruistic, and appreciative view of the world for what it is. Thank you very much for watching this presentation. And please continue to fill out the rest of that Google Doc for this lesson.